Good afternoon and welcome to this press conference on the agreement in principle reached between the EU and Ukraine on the review of the EU-Ukraine deep and comprehensive trade area. I have the pleasure to welcome Commissioners Šefčovič and Hansen. Commissioner Šefčovič, please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. We are pleased to announce that the Commission and Ukraine have reached an agreement in principle on the review of our bilateral deep and comprehensive free trade agreement following the Article 29 consultation process. This agreement opens a new chapter in EU-Ukraine trade relations. It sets out a long-term, predictable and reciprocal framework benefiting exporters, businesses and farmers on both sides and reinforces Ukraine's path to EU membership. This is fully in sync with our dynamic trade relationship, which continues to grow. Trade volumes reached some €67 billion in 2024, up from €26 billion in 2016, when the DCFTA first removed most tariffs. This partnership has also delivered economically for the European Union, generating an €18 billion trade surplus. Today's agreement in principle is balanced, fair and realistic. It represents the best possible outcome under difficult geopolitical conditions. Politically, this is a strong signal of steadfast support to Ukraine as it defends its sovereignty and democratic future. And crucially, it is also a response to concerns voiced by our member states, farmers and food producers. In one sentence, we listened to you, heard you, and now we act. Key elements of the agreement include Ukraine's commitment to gradually align its agriculture production standards with those of the EU by 2028, in line with its accession goals. We have also secured a robust safeguard mechanism to shield EU markets, especially where imports could cause serious difficulties at the EU or member states level. And this agreement expands trade opportunities for agri-food products. For sensitive items like eggs, sugar and wheat, quota increase but remain below historic trade volumes to ensure the EU market stability. For less sensitive products, quotas increase moderately, while some products will be fully liberalised. And I'm sure that Commissioner Hansen will further elaborate on these categories. Reciprocally, Ukraine will increase quotas on pork, poultry and sugar exports and reduce or eliminate duties on other products. This will boost export opportunities for European farmers, especially in member states neighbouring Ukraine. We have also agreed to revisit this agreement in the coming years, taking into account Ukraine's economic integration and progress on alignment with EU standards. Additionally, we are exploring potential support measures to help Ukraine access historical global agri-food markets, because we believe that also in this way we would contribute to the global food security. While the main contours are now agreed, technical details will be finalised shortly. Both sides will launch their respective procedures with the Council endorsement required on the EU side before entry into force. Meanwhile, the transitional arrangements introduced after the expiry of autonomous trade measures on the 5th of June will ensure that trade flows continue without disruption. In closing, I would like to thank Commissioner Hansen for excellent cooperation throughout this process, and my appreciation also goes to the dedicated negotiating teams in the Commission and in Ukraine. Once again, this is a forward-looking and balanced agreement. It supports Ukraine's Europe future, safeguards the interests of EU farmers, and provides the stability and predictability our trade relations need in these uncertain times. Thank you.
Commissioner Hansen.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. With the association agreement between the EU and Ukraine, including its deep and comprehensive free trade area, there is a strong and dynamic EU-Ukraine trade relationship. And the DCFTA removed the vast majority of all tariffs in our bilateral trade when it entered into force in 2016. And since then, our bilateral trade has more than doubled from 26 billion in 2015 to 67 billion in 2024. And following Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, the EU has taken significant measures to support Ukraine in various ways. And in terms of trade, the EU has been granting autonomous trade measures since June 2022, and this unilaterally removed the EU tariffs and quotas for 36 agriculture products which were not removed in 2016, and this allowed Ukraine's agri-food exports to the EU to develop. And these autonomous trade measures were prolonged twice and have now expired on the 5th of June and are currently replaced by a transitional regime based on the 2016 quotas. And they were exceptional instruments offering a very high level of unilateral liberalization on a yearly basis since 2022 in a moment of great urgency and need. And we now need to move to long-term predictability and reciprocity in the broader accession perspective. And therefore, at the occasion of the last renewal of the ATMs, it was decided that the trading relationship should be put on a more permanent footing through the review of the DCFTA foreseen in Article 29 of the agreement. And over recent weeks, constructive talks with Ukraine have taken place to review our bilateral trade agreement, and this is essential to ensure a more stable and predictable basis for exporters, businesses and farmers on both sides, and sensitivities in certain agriculture sectors, notably in the member states neighbouring Ukraine, were fully taken into account. And the Commission is very pleased to announce today that an agreement in principle has been reached with Ukraine. And this agreement comprises several elements. It includes a commitment of Ukraine to gradually align by 2028 to EU production standards in the agriculture sector, such as animal welfare or, for example, the use of pesticides. And I want to be very clear on this point. The additional market access granted is conditional to Ukraine's alignment to our production standards. And promoting a level playing field for EU farmers was clearly stated in the vision for agriculture and food, and now we are as well delivering on this. And this commitment also fits perfectly with Ukraine's EU accession path. We also agreed to include a safeguard mechanism, in particular for cases where imports would cause serious difficulties. And this would apply to both parties, and in the case of the EU, it would also apply in case of adverse effects at the level of specific member states. And last but not least, it will give to both Ukraine and EU significant further trade opportunities for agri-food products. Our aim has always been to find the right balance between supporting Ukraine's trade with the Union and at the same time addressing the sensitivities of a number of EU agriculture sectors and related concerns. Both EU and Ukrainian producers deserve a stable and predictable basis for the future development of bilateral trade. And let me give you the key elements of the revised market access arrangements for imports from Ukraine into the EU. For the most sensitive products such as sugar, poultry and eggs, wheat, maize or honey, the quota increases which were agreed fully reflect the sensitivity of these products, and they improve access compared to the 2016 agreement, but moderate imports compared to their peak under the ATMs. And it is important to ensure the stability of EU markets. For other products, market access improvements were agreed to reflect trade that is beneficial to both based on the complementarity of our productions. And most products current quota volumes will increase up to the highest level of trade in recent years. Here we are talking, for example, about butter, skimmed milk powder, malt, gluten, oats and barley groats. Finally, for some products we agreed to fully liberalize, and examples include some dairy products like whole milk powder, fermented milk, but also mushrooms, grape juice, and so on. And in addition, we are also exploring how to support Ukraine's exports to its traditional and global agri-food markets, also in a view to contribute to global food security. And in terms of EU export interests, Ukraine agreed to grant significant increases of quotas for exports of pork, poultry and sugar, and for other products to reduce further duties or abolishing them altogether. And this will enhance the export possibilities for European farmers, notably in the member states neighboring Ukraine, whose export of, for example, pork, poultry and cheese will be more competitive in the Ukrainian market. And furthermore, we are ready to review the situation again in a few years, especially in the context of its progress in economic integration and accession prospects. And while now the overall contours of the agreement are there, technical details have still to be finalized in the coming days. And both sides will also need to go through the respective procedures for endorsing the outcome of these negotiations, and the entry into force will then follow as soon as possible. And in the meantime, the EU's transitional arrangements that were set up following the expiry of ATMs on 5th of June ensure that trade flows can continue. And overall, I believe this agreement provides the much needed stability and predictability for the trade relations between the EU and Ukraine for the period ahead, and with the perspective of Ukraine's accession to the Union. And with that, I would like to thank, as well as Maroš Šefčovič did, to the negotiating teams that really worked brilliantly and under a lot of pressure, but nonetheless, I think the result is something that is for the future and should be seen as well like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you, Commissioners. We now have time to take a few questions. Please only keep your hand raised if it's on the topic of the day, so on the agreement. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the floor. Ksenia Polska from Deutsche Welle. I have several questions because, Commissioner, you mentioned, I don't know which one of you is responsible for the liberalization, but you did mention that there will be liberalization on some agricultural products. So if you could maybe tell us what those products are. We know that the Ukrainians really wanted to liberalize as much as possible because they would be, till the end of the year, losing over 1 billion euros on import. So if you could maybe tell us where you managed to meet halfway in the negotiations. And also, we all know that Poland, Slovakia and Hungary imposed unilateral embargo on some of the critical products from Ukraine. So do you expect that when this deal is done, this embargo would be lifted by these countries? Thank you very much.
Maybe I take the first part and you take the second part, if you agree. So the concrete examples of fully liberalized products would be, for example, dairy products like whole milk powder, fermented milk, but also mushrooms, grape juice, for example. There are several more, but those are the most significant ones.
And to answer in this collegial way, I would compliment Commissioner Hansen that we are fully behind this negotiated outcome. And we've been listening very carefully to both sides, to the farmers on Ukrainian side and to the farmers on European side. And I believe that once we will present the outcome of these negotiations to our member states, we of course engage with them in a detailed explanation and present to them how important agreement this is, how good it is for the countries, how sensitive we have been to the different categories of products, and how much we are also opening the opportunities for the exports of EU farmers to Ukraine. So I believe that once these explanations are done and when we move in the process of finalizing the formal approval of this agreement, that there will be also positive reaction to lift these embargoes also from our member states.
Thank you very much. Another question on the topic? Yes, please.
Hi, Bartosz Brzezinski, Politico. Several questions here. What evidence did you use to set these limits for its more sensitive products, medium-sensitive products? Evidence of market disruption? Barley groats were sensitive products a year ago. Are they no longer a sensitive product? If so, why? And then finally, why announce the agreement today? Von der Leyen is supposed to meet with President Zelensky. Is there a reason for announcing it today, not wait until then? It's such a significant development. Thank you.
On the sensitivity of the products, we of course know it from experience because there have been market disturbances. That is exactly the reason why certain member states took certain bans in this sense. So we have analyzed what the market absorption capacity is and have found a balanced solution on the figures that is both taking serious the concerns of the producers in certain member states, but as well the possibilities of exports from Ukraine. So this is balanced between the peaks and what is acceptable for the market.
And about the timing, I think first and foremost we believe that this is very good news. So therefore we just wanted to share it with you and with the wider public, because I know that there was high expectations also on Ukrainian side that we would proceed with the completion of these negotiations as quickly as possible, and we actually completed the discussions over the weekend. So I think we wanted to make sure that now we can start as quickly as possible the formalization of procedures, because there are still several steps needed, and we didn't want to lose any more time any further day, because sooner this agreement enters into force, sooner the farmers from both sides can benefit from what I believe is excellent outcome for Ukraine and for the European Union. And I also know that our member states and our European Parliament, they want to know more details, but to get to that level we need to follow the formal procedures, and therefore we started as of Monday once the negotiations been concluded.
Andy.
Yeah, Andy Bounds from the Financial Times. So on the deal, how quickly is this allowing Ukraine to sell its stuff onto international markets? So the whole point of the ATM was to allow Ukraine to sell stuff outside Europe. So you're now cutting off that route. So how quickly would we replace it? And secondly, on the US, Canada has just dropped its digital sales tax because of threats of tariffs. I just wondered what the EU is doing about digital sales and enforcement. It must be on the table. It must be being talked about. Thanks.
Maybe on the part cutting off, I don't see it as cutting off, because we have the transitional measure that allows for trade to flow. So I believe this is exactly giving the necessary predictability as well, while also allowing trade flows. This was an arrangement that had to be done because of the end of the ATMs, but it has shown already now after the application that it works, and therefore it's not cutting off, it's continuing that trade flows and that as well revenues flow.
And on the second part of your question, as you know, there was an informal deadline announced quite some time ago that by the 9th of July we should do our utmost to arrive. And the agreement, it was reconfirmed in the phone call between the President of the European Commission and President of United States. And this is what we are doing. We are absolutely focusing on the positive outcome. As you know, we received first drafts of the proposals for the eventual agreement in principle. We are working on that. I can say that our technical team is on the way to the Washington, and tomorrow, after I complete the high-level trade dialogue with Turkey, I will fly to the DC as well. And of course, we'll do our utmost with my partner in the US to advance these negotiations as much as possible. But you would understand that at this stage I would not go into any details.
Thank you very much. Kim, yes, continue.
Hi, Kim McCrail from the Wall Street Journal. Thank you for this, and I have a couple of questions for Commissioner Šefčovič. Commissioner, the document that you mentioned that furthered the negotiations that came from the U.S., can you give us a sense of whether it brings these talks any closer or further away from coming to a deal? Secondly, when you are in D.C. this week, can you share anything about who you'll be meeting with and what you and the technical teams hope to accomplish this week, in light of the fact that we're now roughly a week, a little more than a week away from that deadline? And on the deadline, there's been some discussion about the possibility that, given how close we are to that deadline, any deal might look like more of a framework agreement or more of a skeleton of a deal that could be further filled out later on with more negotiations later. Can you update us on your thinking on, what's possible before July 9th and what that might look like? Thanks.
I think that we've been in very intensive and sometimes very intense discussions with my counterpart, my principal counterparts, our Secretary of Commerce, Mr. Havar-Latnik, and U.S. Trade Representative, Ambassador Jameson Greer, and of course, we hope to see them in Washington, D.C. later this week. We know that there is the 4th of July on Friday, so it leaves us Wednesday and Thursday for eventual meetings, which we are planning right now. Our team will talk to the counterparts from both U.S. Trade Representative Office and to the Department of Commerce, and I think that, of course, as you say, that 9th of July is around the corner. So for me, it's always a good sign when we kind of move from the I would say exchange of views into the drafting process. But at the same time, I have to say that of course you have to be very much focused on delivering the results, because we are two biggest trading partners on this planet. We have every year trading more than $1.7 trillion in goods. We are the biggest investors in each other's economy. So of course there is a lot to discuss. So at this stage, I can only tell you that we want to achieve as much as possible, something which would be fair for both the sides, something which would be kind of which would help the businesses from both sides to get more predictability, more clarity about how to plan the business operation for, of course, the rest of the year and for the future. And we want to do it from the perspective of the fact that we are the two closest allies, and I believe that this should be also reflected in our trade agreement.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hansen. Thank you very much, Commissioner Šefčovič. This closes this press point. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.